Hi class, today we're going to look at section 5.3 and I've tried to kind of create a screen to help with some of the glare. I have a lot of windows that connect my living room, my dining room, my entryway, and some of them are like skylights, so I'm trying to improve as our weeks are progressing here, so hopefully you can see a little bit better on this one. So 5.3 is one of the more complicated types of factoring that exist. And I'm going to show you one way to accomplish this type of factoring. There are multiple methods out there. So my way is called the slip and slide method. I've also heard this type of factoring. You can do split the middle term. I used to teach this by a method called Tucker-T because you make a T-chart. There's just a simple guess and check. So I hate to use that expression with some of the younger students in my day, but in my day we had to just guess and refoil, and if it didn't work we would guess again and refoil until we kept coming up with the right answer. So this is one shortcut of multiple types of shortcuts. And here's how you know when to use this type of factoring. So the leading coefficient is not going to be equal to 1. And if there is a GCF, you've already pulled it out front. I'll show you one like that. And still, the leading coefficient, the a, the number in front of the x squared term, isn't a 1. If all of those things happen, then this is the method you want to use. So I've written our steps right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to seem kind of tricky at first, so give yourself some grace to maybe go through 2 or 3 of them with me, and I promise you it does get a little bit easier each time you go through. So here's our A, our B, and our C. So step 1 says multiply the A to the C. We're going to slip it to the back. So we're going to multiply right there. And we're going to write down x squared plus 37x plus 70. So we're going to move this 10, the A, to the back and multiply it. Step 2 says factor the new trinomial. Factor this. The reason why we do this step is so that this has a 1 in front of it, and now it's a little bit more simple to factor. So 2 numbers that multiply to 70 and add up to 37. So over here, you can list the factors of 70. Since everything is positive, you can see that we're going to use 2 and 35. And so now I've done step 2. I've factored my new trinomial. Step 3 says divide by A. So since this is really where the slide should be. All right, divide by A. Since we slipped it to the back here, we need to undo what we did after. So I'm going to divide both of these pieces by 10. Again, we only multiplied to make this piece look easier. And then we're going to reduce and rewrite. So 2 over 10 reduces down to 1/5. And we're going to slip this 5 right there. 35 over 10 reduces down. I can take a 5 out of both of those, so 7/2. And I'm going to slide. I think I use the words slip and slide interchangeably, so hopefully you get the point. If there is a denominator, you just move it right in front of that x. If there is a denominator, you just move it right in front of that x. And if you were going to FOIL that, you would end up with what you started with. Let's do another one. I know this can be tricky. All right, we've got, and feel free to stop it at any time and try it on your own. All right, this one I kind of upped the game here because I added in a GCF, so maybe I'm throwing out too much too soon. So pause right there maybe and see if you can't determine the GCF. If you look at these three terms, what's the biggest number that goes into all three, and can you pull an X out front? So as I look at it, I know that all three of those are divisible by the number 4. And since this is x to the third power x squared and x, I know I can pull an x out to the front. So when I divide and subtract, I know this is going to be 19x plus 10. All right, this part right here is going to just go along for the ride. But this number right here is still not a 1. So we're going to use these steps right here to solve this problem. This is the A, this is the B, and this is the C. The 4x just follows out front as we do each step. Or you can just squiggle it, just don't forget to write it at the end, okay? All right, step 1. Multiply A back to the C. And you get x squared minus 19x plus 60. Now keep in mind you have a negative here, but a positive here. So you either need 2 positives or 2 negatives to multiply to a positive. And since that one's negative, you know that you're adding your 2 numbers, but both your factors are going to be negative. Now let's list the factors of 60. We have 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 and 12, 6 and 10. 4 and 15 add up to 19, so if both of those were negative, we have a negative 4 and a negative 15. And so now we've done this step, we've factored the more simple trinomial, and now we're going to divide by this A. I think this is the hardest part. As I teach this skill, the hardest part to remember is to go back and divide by that A. So if you multiply it here, you've got to undo it. So one suggestion is simply to circle that in red or some other color. So you got to divide it to the back. The next step is reduce. And then we're going to rewrite. And if you don't want to write this step down and you just want to scribble right there, obviously that's totally fine. Here I'm going to take out a 3, so that's going to be 5/2. And then we're going to slide that 3 in front of that x. We're going to slide that 2 in front of that x. And then that 4x, don't forget it, it's going to come straight down. And that's our final answer. I have 2 more, so stay tuned, and hopefully as you just kind of watch me go through these problems, you're finding that it's not as hard as you originally thought. I think sometimes the hardest part is finding those factors and just having a good sense of multiplication. So again, I have 4 total. So feel free to use any of or all of these as your tries. Step 1, there's no GCF. So that's our true step 1. We have to double check always. And so let's multiply that 3 back to the 8. And then we have to factor here. Now, because this is negative, you know you're going to have 1 of each, which makes this a particularly tricky question. And here's why. If I go and list the factors of 24, I have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. 4 and 6 add to 10, but 2 and 12 subtract to 10. And I know that that's what I'm gonna pick because I know if it multiplies to a negative, I have to have one of each number type. Since it's a negative 10, I'm gonna put the negative 12 here and the positive 2 there. Since I multiplied, here comes that tricky part that's so easy to forget. Since I multiplied by that 3 right there, I'm gonna divide by the 3 here. And then you're gonna reduce and rewrite. So this one works out just a little different. 2/3 doesn't reduce. So just slide that 3 right there. 12/3 does reduce. It reduces to just 4. So you don't have to have a coefficient in front of that x. In this case, that coefficient is just a 1. So that, again, is final answer. All right. Here's one for you to try. Good luck. If you haven't tried one until now, seems like there's always a distraction on my neighborhood, on my streets. I've got someone doing yard work in the middle of the afternoon on the block. Hopefully you don't hear that too much. It's 110 out. You'd think they would have done stuff in the morning. So here's your try. Go ahead and pause. And we're back. Hopefully you saw the GCF. And we have x to the third, x squared, and x. So let's pull that 2x out to the front. And so we have that is our step 1. The 2x is now up front. This is not your a that you're going to work with when you do step 1. It's going to be that 4 right there. So again, circle it in some other color, highlight it, do something if you'd like. That's what we're going to multiply by. This is just going to keep following us down with every step. So multiply the 4 to the back. Factor. We need 2 things that multiply. Boy, I almost didn't see it. That's funny. So here are my factors of 12. If I have a positive 12 and a negative 1, I come up with 11. So I'm going to have x minus 1 and x plus 12. Since I have this circled in red, that's my huge reminder that I'm going to go right here and divide by the 4 there in that step. I'm going to reduce. You can't, so I'm going to slide that 4 right there. 12 over 4 is 3, so x plus 3. And because I made this really obnoxious squiggle right here, that is my visual reminder to not forget to write the 2x out front. So that is 5.3. I did create some extra practice videos for the factoring, so if you want to see when we're through, I think 5.1 through 5.5, when you're through all of that, if you just want some extra practice, I have those posted and linked up as well. So good luck and have a good afternoon.